thought leaders in business, life, and all points in between. Today, we are definitely going to be talking some business with JD Garcia, SVP of Revenue and Growth at Impactable, B2B LinkedIn agency. JD, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg.
Now, normally, whenever I'm talking with JD or communicating via LinkedIn with them, we're talking about LinkedIn ads, but I think we're going to indirectly talk about them a little bit. What we're really going to talk about is how JD built an AI workforce to run his go-to-market efforts and how you name them after DBZ. Now, maybe this is a victim. I'm a victim of the wisdom strips here, but I don't even know what DBZ is. Tell me, let's
Yeah.
start out right there, JD.
Well, I have the wisdom strips too. They're coming in. They're getting a little bit deeper. But I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z as a kid, which was anime,
Okay.
and it's something that I just watched. I watched for years, and I actually watched later in life too. I won't say how late, but I still did. And so I thought it'd just be funny to name my crew members, my workforce, after them, and it's still funny to me today.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your crew here. We were just chatting a little bit before we came on the show here, but this, we're hearing a lot about agents and AI, and most people are using AI like either a search bar or just for some, some writing or some things like that. But what you did is kind of take it to the next level, and as you told it to me, it was more of a matter of survival. So before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at Impactable and what led you then to build this application?
Yeah. So I've been at Impactful for about 7 years now. I run our sales. I contribute pretty greatly to our marketing. I'm leading our product development right now with our thought leadership engine. Part of it kind of ties into this AI orchestration that we'll talk about today. And then I act as a strategist on the account services side. And so I work with a lot of our largest clients on defining strategy, defining milestones, goals, KPIs, how we structure things. And so I'd say, a good chunk of my time is spent talking to clients. Another chunk is spent talking with prospects. And then the rest of the time, I'm trying to squeeze in everything else, which is, I think like six or seven different kind of jobs, but four core ones.
Okay, so you're a busy guy and starting to like a lot of us get a little bit overwhelmed, right? Is this kind of what led you to take this next step?
Yeah, and so this really it came out of necessity, and I wish I could tell you that I had the foresight to know, like, okay, I'm getting busy. I need to think about how to redesign, how I'm using AI. It wasn't that at all. It kind of just happened at the same time, and probably it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because anybody that knows, if you add like some productivity thing, or you get some type of tool and the goal is, okay, I'm going to get time back. When you get that time back, you just end up spending that time on something else, and you're still late going home from work. So it's not really like you get time back. And so probably some of what I'm doing now and the things I said I'm doing, I'm probably only doing because I was able to get time back to then invest over here. But to your comment, um, yes, this was kind of it's kind of out of necessity. And so I don't like doing anything bad or having a bad name. And so if I'm doing different jobs, I want to make sure all of those are kind of going well. I've been using AI for quite a while. Google Gemini, which comes with Google Workspace, and so if you have that, you have Gemini, which is pretty great. And then ChatGPT, like everybody, kind of pretty much uses. But I kept hearing kind of Claude, 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 from everybody. And finally, the last straw was at a LinkedIn event in Dallas. One of the other agencies there was telling me how they're using Claude to build out some customer reports, and I was like, okay, I got to try this out. And so I made the switch from ChatGPT to Claude, and then I realized that this is just night and day difference. And I don't have a promo code for Claude, so there's not like me being a paid sponsor for Anthropic. But if you are using AI and you haven't tried Claude yet, I would definitely recommend doing so. And what we'll cover today is what I built inside of Claude.
Okay, well, let's jump into it. What exactly happened? You're on Claude, and everybody, I hear this a lot, and I can tell it's definitely where a lot of people are going. Um, you're on Claude, and what happens next?
Yeah, I actually put something together, just a few kind of simple slides I think would be helpful to go through, just to kind of talk through this a little bit. So I'll share my screen here. Is that okay?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go here. So it kind of came down to this. If you're using AI right now, whether that's Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, and you're basically kind of typing everything out to like again over and over, you're basically paying a productivity tax. So a lot of people use AI to be more efficient. They have questions, maybe they need help with writing, they're trying to analyze reporting, but pretty much every time you use that chat, you're starting fresh. Now, ChatGPT and some of the others have like memory baked in, and you can tell it to remember certain things, but it's kind of not perfect. It's kind of not perfect. And so every single time you're doing that, you have one chat for your task. You have to re-explain everything, re-upload everything, redo everything. If that conversation goes on long enough, the amount of messages and stuff in there starts to bloat, and you have what's called hallucination. So the AI starts, kind of bugging out a little bit.
Yeah.
If you don't give it enough context, then you're going to get generic outputs. And so this is where people will say like AI slop, and AI is just not really great. It's like, well, no, you just didn't give it the right, kind of context and parameters.
Right.
And then you get things that are kind of like, average. So if you're somebody that writes and you're using it to kind of help you there, you may have noticed where you're trying to get something, or trying to get the AI to sound like you, and it's really hard. And you just kind of find yourself going back and forth. And maybe you've thought, maybe this isn't it, or this is kind of good enough. And I feel like this is where most people kind of sit right now, is in this kind of space. And this is somewhat where I was at too, with using ChatGPT. I wasn't really getting enough out of it. Same thing with Gemini. I wasn't really getting enough out of it. And so what kind of prompted this is I started getting really busy. And so between sales, operations, doing content. So, I do my own content for LinkedIn, coaching, partnerships, like I mentioned, with kind of LinkedIn. I was starting to drop some balls. And so everybody knows, like, that's like really busy, or you're in a startup, or you're running a business, or whatever it is. It's like a matter of like picking who you're going to disappoint. Do I disappoint my family? Do I disappoint my staff, my coworkers? Do I disappoint, kind of clients? And so it's like when you start getting overwhelmed, like someone's going to get disappointed, and you're kind of picking, who that's going to be. If you're like me, you try to rotate those around. So
equal time.
yeah, everyone's equally disappointed. And so I was starting to notice this. Like, it wasn't terrible. Like my kids know who I am, right? I wasn't like missing home so much, but it was enough for me to kind of notice. And then so what I kind of did was I had read online on X, looking through some people that kind of talk about this, how they were using AI as like an orchestration layer. And so I kind of heard this before, and maybe you have heard of it too. There's a lot of like new things that come out with AI. For like every day you wake up, there's like some new kind of groundbreaking thing. But the one thing that I found that's like pretty consistent is you, like you as a person, you as a company, the things that you do. And so there is actually some constant, even if there's new kind of developments and everything that kind of come out. And so this is kind of the realization that I had, is that I needed to actually create something that was going to kind of compound over time and knew exactly who I was. Now I'll take a quick pause here, because I kind of went for a little while. Anything you want to pull on, Greg, or maybe linger on a little bit?
No, I'm just following along the narrative. No, it's good.
Okay. So basically what I built is kind of, there's three layers here to this. Let me adjust the size. So what I build is kind of the three layers here. And so what I talked about first is kind of like the orchestration layer. And so the orchestration layer is basically just kind of the instructions for how things kind of get done. So think about this as like, you're running a restaurant or something. Somebody kind of comes in, the host or hostess seats them. The waiter, takes the order. Then it goes to the cook who makes the order. The waiter then takes it and kind of brings it back. And so the orchestration layer is basically just the set of instructions for how things are supposed to kind of get done. And so this orchestration layer, right, is going to basically read the ask. It's going to know kind of like, okay, what's being asked here. It's then going to know, okay, who do I need? Do I need a hostess, a host? Do I need a waiter? Do I need staff? Do I need hopefully not a manager, right? And so it's going to know exactly what to kind of get done, and it's going to go ahead and kind of route those things. And so this is the thing that it's a little bit of work to do, but I really believe that everybody should take the time to do this. Now, preface this by saying, and I probably should have said this sooner, I'm not like a developer. I don't know how to code. I'm not, even though I'm on my computer all the time and I built some of these things, I'm not like what I would call like a super technical person. There's lots of those people. And if one of them is watching this right now, they're probably looking at this and maybe scoffing a little bit at it because it's not very technical. It's very, very kind of simple, but that's the whole point is like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that aren't technical. And so you don't have to be some technical guru to do this. You need a little bit of curiosity, Claude subscription, and then hopefully a few free weekends where your family is not upset with you for staring at your laptop, and you can do this too, right? This orchestration layer includes a few key things. It includes who you are, so it knows everything about you, knows your style, knows your role, knows how you like to talk, how do you prefer to get information, just kind of key details about you. And then if you're using it for work like I am, then it understands things about your company, what your company is, what it sells, who it sells to, any kind of important things about your company. These act as kind of like your two kind of key pieces of data. That way, any output that comes out, it's being taken through that lens where it knows who you are and it knows your company. Again, if you're using this for work, you need the company one. If you're just using this for yourself, then you just kind of need that personal one. But that orchestration layer, right, is going to then route to the specialists. And so this is what I found was really interesting is I started off with two specialists. There were just two crew members. There was my HR crew member, and the HR crew member, their job is just to go and hire new crew members. And it sounds kind of funny in this sense to me anyway, when you're talking about, AI and crew members or agents, where they have like jobs, like traditional jobs, but it also works to kind of like understand how this works. But that HR person just has one job. They need to go hire people. The second one is a researcher. And then the researcher is basically going to go and figure out what type of person we need to hire if we need a task. So if I'm going back to the restaurant analogy, if I have my HR manager, I have my restaurant manager, I have my host or hostess, my waiter, and then my chef. But maybe I need a sous chef, or maybe I need a busboy, or maybe I need some of these things. The HR manager is going to talk to the researcher to go figure out, okay, for this role, what do we need? What is this person's job? How do they interact with everyone else? They're going to bring that to the HR crew member, and they're going to add them to part of that kind of employees list. And
Let
so,
me let me just have you pause for a second there, JD. So I want to make sure I'm following along because you're kind of giving us a metaphor or an analogy of what you did. But you're doing this all in right now as you're starting to put this together and what you did. You're in Claude. You're not, are you in the development part of it or the Claude coding, or are you still, this is still prior to that where you're just trying to figure out how you're going to do all this?
yeah, good question. At this point, I'm in Claude Code, but I'm in the actual app. So, I guess a few other things to keep in mind is in order to be able to do this, one, you need to download the app. You cannot use the web version of Claude, at least as of today, May 1st, 2026. That might change. But as of right now, to the best of my knowledge, you cannot do this in the web version. You have to actually download the app to your Windows, Mac, to your computer.
Okay.
And then two is you use the Claude Code section to be able to do this, but don't let the name scare you. You don't actually need to code. The only
Right.
thing that's different with Claude Code is that you actually have to point it to a specific folder. So my recommendation for you to do is to, on your desktop, create a new folder called, Claude or whatever you want to name it, and then just go ahead and point your Claude code session. Go ahead and point it to that folder, and then you can just work directly out of that folder. But you need to
Okay.
do this in there.
Okay. And then the other thing I'm wondering about is this framework that you're coming up with. Is this something that you had seen? You mentioned X, somebody else talking about. You're like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm going to build that. Or is this something you're kind of going back and forth with Claude, like, hey, I need help. I'm overwhelmed, sharing disappointment all around. Help me out to do something. And it's like, oh, here's a kind of an idea. How did this kind of the three layers come to be?
So far, I haven't really found Claude great at consistently being the original source for ideas. And so the original source for ideas for me is reading what other people are doing. And
Sure.
so I follow a lot of like tech and AI people on X. And so this kind of started from there. And
Okay.
so it was I read something, this guy Ruben Hassid, he was talking about how to set up initially your Claude Cowork and then have it kind of point always to kind of who you are, kind of what you like. But there's like an about me markdown file. I just kind of talked about you. And so what I did is I took a few of those posts and I went over to Claude, which I've been using already for a little while. And I said, hey, would this make sense for me? And if I did, like, how would I actually build it? And so
Okay.
at that point, Claude walked me through the rest of it for
Okay.
me.
All right. Thank you. All right. Keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. The important thing to say here, like with the even the specialists, is you don't need to start with a bunch of specialists. You just start with two.
Okay.
You'll figure out pretty quickly as you kind of go along, like what things you need. The thing that's really important with the different specialists that you work with is that each one of them has a specific job. And so if you had your chef also trying to be, the host or the hostess, they're not going to be as good as their job. And so you want each of these specialists to have a specific job with their own memory and their own instructions so that they are really good at that one thing that they're supposed to do. And so that's kind of the idea. Same thing apply in business. If you have someone wearing a bunch of hats, I'm not talking about myself, but this is true. It's hard for that person to excel as well at every single one of those roles. I guess I am talking about myself. And so you want to have these different specialists. Now, the third part are what are called skills. And so Claude came out with this. This was really cool. When I went into Claude and started using it, I didn't have this orchestration layer. I didn't have any of the things that I'm talking about now with the specialists and the orchestration layer. But what I started with doing was I started with building skills. And so skills are basically a way, think about like prompt engineering, how that became like really popular when AI came out and you had to like become really skilled at writing prompts. And then that was like the thing to do. Think about skills as like a way of like a locked in prompt that tells the AI exactly how you want something done.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like a specific set of instructions. So if we use the analogy of a restaurant again, and we say, one of our specialists is the chef, then a skill might be a recipe for a particular dish. And so that chef, if that order comes through, is going to pull that recipe and is going to know exactly how to make that dish. And that dish is going to be the same today. It's going to be the same tomorrow. It's going to be consistent. And so that's what the skills are. The skills are basically saying, I want something done this particular way. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And so this is the whole kind of shebang here. This is it. These kind of these three layers. And so what's really cool, and I'll kind of show you what this does. Like this is like an actual Tuesday for me. So I keep an activity log. It's part of what one of my crew members' jobs are. or my specialist jobs are, is every single time I use Claude Code, there's a running activity log of briefly, what did I ask, what was output, what day and what time it was. And so if I need to do like a postmortem or something, like there's a running log of everything that I've done. And so this is an actual kind of Tuesday for me of what I was able to do. So every morning at about 4:30 in the morning, I'll open up my laptop as I'm getting ready for the gym. I'll open up my laptop as I'm getting ready for the gym so Claude can do its thing. And what Claude will do is I have several crew members. They'll actually put together a morning briefing for me. So one of those crew members is my executive assistant. They're going to go through my calendar, go through my emails. They're going to look at everything I have for the day. One of those crew members is my sales operations specialist. They're going to look through HubSpot, see what calls we have today with prospects, if there's anything that kind of needs my attention. Are there any proposals that are out that need nudges? Basically anything kind of sales related that I need to work on. I have another specialist that will go through ClickUp and is looking for more kind of client related things, like any of the ClickUp channels for our clients. Is there anything flagged that's outstanding? What are my ClickUp tasks that I have for the day? Is there anything that's overdue that I should kind of be prioritizing? And then the last crew member is going to basically aggregate all of that information together, and it's going to put it into a nice, neat little interactive file for me that I have open for me right there at the beginning of the day. And think of it as like an executive summary for your day. Yeah. This is everything I have today. These are the things I need to prep for. These are the most important action items. These are the things I said I was going to do yesterday, but I didn't actually get to them. So they got kind of moved to today. And so it's just really easy to look in one view of what my day looks like and what I need to prioritize. Awesome.
That sounds incredible. Let me ask you though, JD, I'm going to interrupt here. The agents, and I'm very curious about this. How can they get into these different applications? You mentioned ClickUp, right?
Yep.
Can they get into that? I think we use Monday.com. Can they go over to your HubSpot and then what applications can't they access?
So most of the major applications are going to have a connector for Claude. So Monday has one, ClickUp, Salesforce, HubSpot, I'm pretty sure Salesforce, but Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive, ClickUp, we already said that, HubSpot. We have HeyReach, you can access HeyReach. There are tons of tools that Claude can have access to. If you are not able to access them directly, you can create something what's called an MCP. And then an MCP is basically like a custom connector to a specific application. And so virtually speaking, everything that a human can access, Claude can access. For the non-technical people like myself, as I've said, most of the major tools have a connector directly with Claude.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yep. And so for everything that I'm using right now, there really isn't anything that is not accessible. There is some configuration that's involved there, but pretty much everything is accessible. But this, to me, is like the highlight of my morning, aside from getting to the gym and then working out and doing the sauna, because I love that too. But this is great because I just have everything right there for me, starting my day. Post-drafted in my voice. So I created a process, and at first I didn't really like the name, and now I kind of do, because it's starting to grow on me. But it's called soul extraction, and if you're if you're like negative on AI, the idea of AI extracting your soul may not be very appealing to you, but it is catchy. And so I created a process called soul extraction, where I basically kind of taught Claude how to basically speak and think like me. And so the interesting thing, and was like the uncanny valley moment, was when I had something drafted, because staring at a blank piece of paper sucks. When I had something drafted for me, I read something that made me go, I would 100% say that, but it is not something that I've ever said before in my life. And so that part to me was really crazy to see that, because it's maybe some other version of me that would have said it, but I'm like, I would 100%. And I actually laughed. Whatever, I can't remember what it was, but it was funny. I was laughing. And of course, like most people I think hopefully think that what they say is funny, and I'm no different. Like things I say I think are funny, and I was laughing at this thing that Claude had produced for me, and so it'll help me draft things that are in my voice. It's very helpful. It'll scan the same things that the morning briefing scans. So if I had like a really interesting problem that I solved that week, it's able to kind of pull that, curate it for me, and so I can kind of work with it to massage it for what I want to post for LinkedIn. But I don't have to like think about it or remember it. It has access to all the details. Strategy for client accounts, any meeting that I'm walking into, even this one separately on my screen here, I have literally just kind of my walkthrough for kind of, talking points, everything that I want to make sure I cover, anything in pipeline, meeting recaps, pushing tasks into ClickUp so we don't have to do that manually, sending an email out to a client that has the action items that we agreed to post call that's in my voice, but I actually didn't write it. And so it's already kind of templated for me. And so I was joking with my wife the other day, and I was telling her, I was like, I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit lazy. And sure enough, as soon as I said that, something went wrong, and then I was banging my head trying to fix it because the orchestration layer, something got broken in my system, and that was kind of a pain to go and fix. But really, really, what it is I'm still a content creator. I think this is more of like a dramatic line where I'm not a content creator anymore. I still am because I still am thinking and making decisions on my own. But what I'm doing
For now.
what for now, yes, for now. But what I'm doing now is like I'm orchestrating and correcting outputs, and that's a lot of what I'm doing. A lot of what I'm doing now because I don't need to spend the same brain power trying to explain how I think about something because I've already done it 100 times and I've been able to document it. Now what I'm doing is just massaging the output because of some kind of nuanced difference. And then after I massage that and get something, I'm then locking in that nuanced difference so that I don't have to make that same edit again. And that is scary. It's exciting, but then it's equally scary.
Yeah, the soul extraction is real. I hope it gives it back to you if you need it. I'm right there with you in terms of I feel like I am becoming more the editor of the expert output. But I think the difference, or one of the things I notice, that there needs to be some expert input to get the output, right? So where's this? I see what this is doing. This is serving you up everything. Is it kind of like saying, "Hey, JD, here's what we're going to do today. Here's what you would do normally." It's pulling from your expertise of the past, if I'm following. And
Yes.
then you're saying, yeah, no, maybe tweak this, that,
Yes.
and then boom, it all goes out to whatever needs to be done. Is that somewhat accurate?
Exactly. So I'll give you an example from today. So right before this, we had a call with our kind of primary investor to go over performance, numbers, kind of everything. And so I'm pulling from all different data sources. I'm pulling from HubSpot. I'm pulling from ClickUp. I'm pulling from conversations that we've had within the last 2 weeks that were relevant to this specific conversation. I'm pulling from Gmail for kind of email threads that were kind of had relevant to this kind of conversation. And then I'm using Whisperflow, which, by the way, another shout out to another tool, Whisperflow. Hands down, recommend like best $15 a month that you'll spend. I've used like over 250,000 words in the last 22, 23 days instead of having to type, which makes it so much easier to just get your thoughts out and get out what you want to say. So, yeah, shout out to Whisperflow there. But that meeting we had, I took all those data sources and I kind of dictate exactly what it is that I want output from that. And so I'm still having to guide the exact narrative that I want to drive, the key points that I want to discuss, and then I'm using AI to go extract that info to then pull it in. Versus me now being the one to go and find and extract that information, I can basically just dictate and say, these are the things I want. These are the things that I want to say. This is the data that I need. and AI, or Claude in this case, goes and pulls that and puts it in a format that I want.
It's just going to be the way things are done moving forward. I mean, it's unavoidable. So, we're almost at the top of the hour. I know you got to get going because your cloud is probably. Is there anything else you wanted to share? Just how
Well,
to get.
last thing is like for anybody that's watching this that wants to like get started, and you don't want to do what I did, which is like spend a whole bunch of weekends trying to go and figure this out and put this together. I put together like a little bit of a starter pack, and so you can find me on LinkedIn. It's just JD Garcia, comma impactable. You hit that, you'll find me. I look the same. My beard's a little bit thicker in my profile photo, but it's still me. Send me a connection request, so it's just the word agent, and then I'll send you a starter pack. So it's just going to have like basically the steps you can feed to Claude. That's going to talk about how to set up your orchestration layer, and then those first two specialists, because that's actually the hardest part. Is like, how do I get started? Kind of doing this. This is great. Maybe this was interesting. Like, if I wanted to do this, how do I do this myself? I'll give you it. It's just a Google Doc, very simple. You could take that, use that, and it'll get you started.
That sounds fantastic, JD. Thanks for the resource. I honestly I'm starting to question right now whether I'm talking to you or a member of your team who's handling all interviews, but whatever, it was good one way or the other, and I really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, okay. And thanks everyone else for joining us on another edition of Thought Leaders Live. We will catch you on the next one.